Hello there, my beautiful pumpkins, and welcome back to the pumpkin patch. If you are new here, hello, my name is Kloee Taylor, and I believe that we have the most autumnal, most fall-esque, most cozy corner of the internet. So if you like my style, you like the way I read, make sure that you hit that subscribe button and become a member of the pumpkin patch. And also, before we jump into today's reading, I always like to remind those of you that are new or have been considering, we do have the Patreon available to you where you get exclusive pick-a-cards that you won't find anywhere else. We do weekly energy readings for the collective over there. There's bonus content, early access to content, horoscopes, and so much more. So definitely make sure that you check it out. You also get early access to all of my pick-a-cards that come to YouTube for the public. So like this one you're seeing here, it came to Patreon first. So if you want any of that, be sure to come and check it out. The link for that will be down below. And today's pick-a-card, my beautiful friends, my beautiful pumpkins, I'm so happy to be here. First of all, it is a cloudy, stormy day. We have thunder, we got lightning going on outside, we have beautiful rain showers, and it felt like a fall day when I woke up. All my windows are open. I'm doing my best to make sure that the noise doesn't get into the video. But if it does, I don't think any of you will mind, to be honest. Who doesn't love a nice little trickling rain sound? But today we're going to be reading for your higher self. So this could also be considered like basically a message that is coming from you. So if you're here, if you felt drawn to this pick-a-card, basically the energy right now that you're holding, if you have a hard time getting into a place where you can access your highest self, which everybody has the power to do it, but if you're not consistently working towards it or you haven't been shown how, it can be kind of hard to hear that voice. And so that's why I'm here today. I'm here to channel in your higher self and get messages for you from them. So if you are familiar with pick-a-cards, I'll go ahead and let you know. This is pile number 1, this is pile number 2, and this is pile number 3. And you can head to the timestamps. If you need a little bit of explanation, allow me. Pile number 1 has this copper sphere on top. Pile number 2 has a selenite tower on it. And pile number 3 has a beautiful rose quartz point. So it might be the crystals that you feel called to. You can look at the timestamps if 1, 2, or 3 are your lucky numbers, or maybe every time you come to my pick-a-cards, there's always like one of the piles always resonates and like you want to go with that one. I also want to let y'all know that it is more than okay to choose multiple piles. Some people actually watch my videos from start to finish, and then they will make a decision at the end on which pile they felt like was most channeling in their energy. So never feel bad if you want to choose more than one, that's okay. But if you also just know which one, then that is also okay too. So I'm going to go ahead and turn down my voice and turn up the music and give you some time to meditate with all of these beautiful crystals and allow you to make a selection. All right, pile number 1. So if you chose the copper sphere, it's quite heavy. We're going to put that up there for you. If you chose the copper sphere, this is your pile. So you got the 5 of Cups, the King of Cups, the 9 of Diamonds, and the Hanged One reversed. So I do feel right up front, your higher self recognizes that you are drained. Your higher self recognizes that you have been going through it, that you are tired, that you're low energy, and you need a break, frankly. Whenever we see 5 of Cups energy, that is a huge indication to me that we are wallowing in our suffering, in our fears. And this isn't a bad thing to do. I think sometimes when we hear the word wallow, we think that we're doing a bad thing. And in reality, in order to move through the hard emotions, in order to move through the things that we need to get back to what we want to be joyful about in life, we can't bypass everything that we need to feel through. And I also want to apologize to you, pile number one. If you can hear it, my neighbors are having a good old time next door, and their music is quite loud. I have a pretty good microphone, so you may not be able to hear it, but I hear it, and it's a little bit distracting. So I'm doing my best to hold my energy as well. But with this Five of Cups energy, this is us really pouring into our own despair. And I want you to know, though, and Spirit wants you to know, that this isn't a bad thing. Your highest self wants you to know this isn't bad. This is a good thing. When we, it's something like, it only takes like 90 seconds to feel through an emotion, but people will spend lifetimes running away from how they feel. And if we just allow ourselves to move through and to process and to face the scary thing, it will clear a path, basically. And so, don't feel like, or try not to, I'm not going to tell you what to do, but try your best not to feel like if you allow yourself to feel things that you're going to get stuck there, because that isn't typically what happens. And with the King of Cups coming through, I feel like you actually really know what is on your heart and what needs to be sifted through. Your higher self is here to tell you that you're not giving yourself enough credit right now. Even if we are sitting back and crying is still a very productive thing. That's energy in motion. That's emotion in motion. So it literally, emotion is energy in motion. And I feel like you've been really hard on yourself, when in reality, what you need right now is some gentle, nurturing guidance, some tenderness, some love. And your higher self is saying, stop beating yourself up so hard. You have come so far. You're doing such a good job. You know what your best interests are. And even if other people can't see that right now, it's not for them, it's for you. And with the Nine of Diamonds, I like this card as a progression, because I kind of read with this from left to right. I like it as a progression because the Nine of Diamonds, this really is about having your cake and eating it too. This is about having good things happen to you, and your higher self is wanting you to be ready for those good opportunities that are coming, for the stillness and the relaxation and the peace that is coming. Because if you are not ready to hold that energy of peace, Spirit is ultimately saying, and your higher self is saying, that it's going to be hard for you to enjoy it. You're going to feel like you need to move on to the next thing, instead of allowing yourself to enjoy the peace that will come. And that, I feel like, is the hardest thing with the Nine of Diamonds. It's ultimately good things. It's happy times. It's feeling good. It's feeling nurtured and supported and taken care of. But if we don't believe that we're worthy of it from the jump or from the start, we won't even allow ourselves to sit in that energy. We'll run away from it. And so your higher self is saying, listen, this time is coming for you very soon, in fact. And you need to be ready to harness it, to hold it, and to let yourself be still and to relish in what you've created. And then with the Hanged One reversed, I feel like this is actually great coming out after this, because wherever you have needed a break, where you've been being hard on yourself, you're actually going to be ready to stand up and dance and move away from this and move into feeling more high energy, feeling more elated about life, more happy, and not feeling like you're stuck or bound. Because if you notice this card, when it's in its normal position, this is how it looks. Right? We have this person being bound up by a tree, being forced to stay there. But if you have it right side up, we're on top of the tree. We're having an intricate dance with ourselves. We're having an intricate dance with the universe. We are moving in a way that feels good to us, and we can reach down and remove those constraints. So I feel like ultimately you're coming into more of a place of empowerment, and your higher self is saying, like, just please stop putting yourself down. You are unique and beautiful and intricate, and every single part of you has value and merit, and you need to start paying attention to it. And I know that it can be hard to believe if we've been made to believe otherwise. It can take a lot of time and a lot of re-understanding and relearning who we are. It's a process. It's called work because it's work, right? We say that a lot on this channel. But your higher self is saying that it's time for you to start stepping into that energy of self-belief, of understanding who you are and where you've come from, what your story says about you. Because guess what? You actually get to decide what your story says about you. I know we think that other people get to dictate it, but they don't. We get to decide how our story is written. Other people may give us ideas of what they think it was like, but only you know what it was like. So it's time for you to own it. Now we also have for you the card of the riddle. We have apocalypsis. And we have for you the poet. So I feel like with the riddle is like, these cards are very depth based, like they're very depth psychology based. That's why I love them for it. Y'all know I'm into the depth realm. But with riddle, this is an interwovenness of yourself. It's letting yourself be a timeless riddle, getting curious and excited about your own expansion. And because I see even there's like these little constellations and there's a planet, it looks like, in the middle of this. And remember that we are all stardust. We are all made of the same stuff that stars are made of. And on top of that, we all have intricate birth charts that depict like literally a map of us in the sky at the moment we are born in correlation to the place that we were born. This is why I always say, like, you are so much more than your sun sign. There's like a whole astrological map that is you. And it reflects basically like as above, so below. And this is bringing together all of those intricate parts. And it's going to feel like disaster sometimes. Honestly, this is such a natural and normal part of life. Nobody has it all figured out. Your higher self wants you to know that. Nobody has it all figured out. Nobody is going to do your life better than you will. And if things need to fall apart, let them. Let things fall apart so that they can fall together again. It's this wanting to control and hold and not letting things just be in the flow, and recognizing that the universe is never out here to hurt you. The universe is here to help you along your path so that you can co-create the reality you want to exist in. It's not made just for special people. It's made for everyone. And apocalypsis talks about, like when we think about the word apocalypse, it's like, oh, the end of days. But apocalypsis, what people miss with the entire mark of an apocalypse is it's the crumbling of the old and the rebirth of the new, no matter how you spin it, no matter what it looks like. I mean, even if we take this to like a very like real time, or I don't even want to say real time because this hasn't happened, but like, even if we take this like to what science tries to depict, like the human race being wiped out. Yeah, we might not exist, but the planet is going to take care of herself. Like, the planet will still go on. The life on this planet, new life will form. Something about it will change, right? Our understanding of our lifetime maybe wouldn't be here, but it's still going to go on. The energy is still going to go on. And I'm not saying that to be like a doomsday interpreter. Like, no. I think that we as a people, we don't give ourselves enough credit for how much good we are doing. We only see the bad on the news every day, which is why I don't watch the news. We only see the bad. We don't get all of the reports of all the good stuff. And with apocalypsis, I feel like it's wanting to control every outcome because we think we are facing impending doom, when in reality, impending doom can be our greatest blessing because it can bring us to this entirely new place, new sense of self that we never could have thought was possible before. And so, like, I feel like in modern society, we take that word apocalypse and we make it this horrible thing. And like, granted, I don't want to not be here either, but what I'm saying is we don't know. And what a beautiful thing to leave it in the riddle, to leave it in the unknown. and to try to take care of and nurture the things that we can control. Then with the poet over here, I like this card because this always tells me that when you choose this pile, that you have a way with words in some way, be it writing books, be it writing short stories, be it writing poetry, song lyrics. There is something about you and the written word, and your higher self is asking you to communicate through the written word. Have you ever tried it's called like automatic writing, where you just get into a meditative state, and I usually will hold with my non-dominant hand. So my dominant hand is my right hand. I'm right-handed, but I will hold a pen with my left hand, and I will set my hand down on a piece of paper, and I will just like allow myself to flow, sometimes with my eyes closed, and I will let my higher self direct me on what messages I need to hear. And I feel like your higher self, that's what is being asked of you. That's, we might feel like we don't have the answers to things, or things feel hard or fuzzy, but try a different approach to understanding. Try that automatic writing. Try getting it out in song form, in the written word in some way. Now, we also have for you the card of withdrawal. And I feel like many of you might need to take some hermit time. I used to make the joke over the last few years that I was a total hermit and I didn't like leaving my house and da 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 da. But I feel like the minute I had to be in my house, I didn't want to be in my house. But I feel like when we get this card of withdrawal, it's not about having substance withdrawal or anything like that. It's a withdrawal into self more. It's coming into self more, understanding the self more, and no longer asking, have you ever met somebody, or maybe this is you, that every time they want to make an important decision in their life, they go to every single person they know to ask them what they think. And don't get me wrong, I think getting a few opinions on something really important, it can be a really good thing to help have some grounded suggestions or advice. But the more and more and more people you spread that to without actually asking yourself, how does it make me feel? That's where we lose sight of ourselves. That's where we need to withdraw more so that we can learn to have that internal validation that comes only from ourselves. We're never going to get the validation that we want from other people, I promise. It doesn't mean other people can't validate us and help us along the way, but we're never going, it's like having an intrinsic or an extrinsic value. When we have intrinsic value, it has been proven that intrinsic value, which is our inner world, when we have more value on that versus what is outside of us, it's actually been proven that we are happier people. And so I feel like you're really being asked by your higher self to withdraw, to stop asking everybody else what they think, and to pay attention to how things make you feel. Especially those of you that I'm hearing a specific message, those of you that are rebranding right now or doing something in business, you're getting everybody else's opinion on color palettes, on design, on this, on that. Don't get me wrong, praise is nice, but you need to learn how to look in the mirror and praise yourself. Because that praise from somebody else is going to feel good for a second, but if you're always on the hunt for it, it's never going to feel as good as you think it will. It's not going to be the thing that is going to sustain you. Being able to look in the mirror and say, oh my gosh, I built this whole brand. I made all these colors. I love how it looks. It really represents me and what I'm trying to do. I promise that will carry you so much farther than anybody else's advice or opinion. And that goes for anything in life, but I got a specific message about those of you that are working to rebrand. Now, we also have Underworld. And I'm not going to lie to y'all, pile number one, I fucking hate this card. And it's not because it's a bad card. It's because I have been in this place and it is hard. It can be a hard place to be in. The Underworld card is all about basically not literally having a brush with death, but metaphorically having a brush with death and realizing that you are able to power through so much more than you ever thought possible. And when we're in that state of feeling like we're in the underworld, right? This can pertain to our unconscious or our subconscious. This is To be honest, I feel like I should know this. And I want to say I've even done podcast episodes on this when me and my twin flame used to run a podcast. And I think we covered this topic, but I don't actually know in terms of the subconscious and the unconscious, they are so similar. I'm sure there are differences, but I think they are very minor. But I guess my point to bringing all of that up is I said both. And I was like, well, which is it? But I guess we're going to go with both here. However, when we get into that state of the underworld, it's getting into a world. It's not about leaving where we are. It's not about astral travel. That's not what I'm getting at. When I talk about the underworld, it's getting into the depth of ourself, getting into maybe past things that we had forgotten about, maybe releasing emotion that we didn't even realize we were storing in the body. Because often, especially in like even therapeutic practices, which I absolutely condone, I think therapy is good for everybody. Personally, I always recommend, if you are able to, getting in with a therapist. But sometimes even dealing in therapy, now, if you have a really good therapist, it will be different. But we can't always think our way through everything with like cognitive behavioral therapy. That can take us really far, don't get me wrong. But sometimes we need to work with somebody that can help us with the body. And we store those memories, those traumas, those things that we've been through our entire lives. We store those things in the body. Have you ever noticed when like you feel a certain trigger coming on or something, that your body will have a reaction? It's not just racing thoughts. Your body will often have a physical reaction. And I'm saying these things because I feel like when we go through the underworld, it's often not about the brain. It's about connecting the body, bringing the body back online and saying, hey, how can I be the most connected version of myself possible? How can I go into that space that feels scary and untapped and very like shadow realm, it's the parts of us that are hard for us to look at. It's our deepest fears coming to the surface, but allowing us to work through them instead of avoid them. Basically, so that we can come out the other end and teach other people how, or to become stronger so that we can move into the next chapter. So I say that I hate it because the underworld can be a lot of our fears coming up, but not necessarily them playing out in real life, but us just being stuck in a fear loop. And I feel like your higher self is asking you, if this sounds like you, to get more in touch with your body, to bring on more sense of feeling, get in touch with the taste, the sounds, the smells, they talk about like somatic healing, which is bringing your sensory back on, bringing our different senses back on to help us work through, instead of just going immediately to our brain and thinking we're going to be able to think through everything. Because sometimes, frankly, you just have to feel through it. And I feel like for you, this is why I said, if you're in this 5 of Cups right now, this is a good thing. You're doing something with this energy. You have to stop beating yourself up about it, because your healing journey isn't going to look like anyone else's. Now we also have for you, oh my gosh, I love this card. We also have for you the card of you are not for everyone. Embrace your weirdness, face your true north. So this is all about you literally working on yourself for yourself and not for other people, facing your true north, having courage to go through the depths of your own unconscious into your own shadow work, whatever it looks like for you, and knowing that you don't need to prove yourself to other people in this process. In fact, if you lose some people, that's a good thing, because these people, you don't need them along the journey, and you are not going to be everyone's cup of tea. And you, frankly, people hate to hear this, but it is the truth. If we are doing anything that is a very like people-pleasing mentality, people-pleasing, though it is not, the people that are people-pleasing are not inherently trying to be bad. And bad, I say, is a very loose term, because what is even good and bad? That's up to like the eye of the beholder. But people pleasing isn't inherently a bad thing. I have people pleased. I have friends that struggle with people pleasing. We are not bad people. However, people pleasing at its core is very manipulative. Let me explain to you why before you get upset. And maybe you'll still get upset, and that's okay. You are free to have your own opinion and expression here, always. But people pleasing is inherently manipulative because what it does is we don't feel inherently safe with someone else. And that can be for a multitude of reasons. It can be because we've experienced trauma with this person. It can be because we've experienced trauma around other people and this situation feels similar. So it's not necessarily always even our fault. But when we people please, it is often because we are afraid that if we act in our own favor, we're going to be punished. We're going to be seen as bad or not good. So we will lie to ourselves and in turn lie to others to appease them so that we cannot feel bad about ourselves. Does that make sense? So it is inherently manipulative because we are manipulating how other people see us. And it's hard. It's hard to stand up in your own authenticity when you're used to having to cater to everyone else around you. And it's hard to rip the Band-Aids off when you first start. But Spirit is ultimately saying, and your higher self is ultimately saying, you have to start acting in your own favor. You have to start acting in your own favor. It doesn't matter if it's parents, if it's friends, if it's coworkers. You have to start acting on your best interests and trusting yourself in the process, because it hurts your connection to yourself the most. You're only hurting you. You're not hurting other people. You're only hurting you. And you will not be for everybody. In fact, if everybody loves you, you should think in your life that that is probably a problem, because you will not be for everybody. There is not a single person on the face of this earth that everybody loves. I promise. We also have for you the card of the eagle. And the eagle, this to me is all about soaring as high as you possibly can, being with the beautiful rays of the sun, and being able to persevere through difficult conversations, through difficult things, knowing that you have the inner strength to do that. And then I have 3 cards for y'all, just some extra little notes for this reading that your higher self wanted you to have. We have beginnings. Don't be afraid to start small. Okay, so really, with that people pleasing, if that sounds like you, start small. Commit to speaking your honest truth in little ways. It doesn't have to be the big stuff right away. Often it's the small things that lead to the bigger things. We also have radiance. Keep your head held high and follow the sun. Literally, I just told you. The eagle is up there hanging out with the sun with its golden, beautiful rays, right? So keep that radiance about you. You literally sparkle like the sunshine. I promise. It's an energy. People that are inherently confident or beautiful or what have you, it is an energy. It is not a physical appearance. It is an energy that people carry, and you can tap into it too. And then we also have for you, persevere, leave no stone unturned. So as you're working through your own landscaping, shall we say, or your own inner world to figure out what needs to come up to the surface, as you're doing this, don't leave any stone unturned. Go down every alleyway, go down every path, don't feel like, oh, I can't talk about this thing. Obviously, I always want you to be safe. I always want you to reach out for help from licensed therapists and specialists if you are able to. There's also lots of online services now that you can do that with. So there are so many ways that we can leave no stone unturned. Finding a trusted person to talk to. I feel like ultimately, as you venture down this path, you're only at the tip of the iceberg. And you know what we know about icebergs? The bulk of it is underneath. It's under that subconscious line. It's maybe in the body. There's a lot coming up here for you, pal number 1, and your higher self had a lot to say. So I hope this reading helps you out. I hope it helps you to maybe decide to go into the shadow work a little bit more. As always, stay safe. Take good care of yourself. do not forget, when you stand up in your own authenticity, you empower everyone around you to do the same. If you would like to tip me for my readings, I don't expect it from you, but it is certainly appreciated. I have my Cash App, Venmo, and PayPal listed down below. I also have my Patreon where you can get exclusive readings, early access, bonus content, all kinds of goodies. You can check that out down below as well. And of course, please do not forget to follow me on Instagram and TikTok. I have new content coming out all month long this month over there. So it's going to be a good time. And I love you so much, Pumpkin, and I will talk to you again soon. But hello there, pile number 2. If you chose this pile, you would have chosen the Selenite Tower. So we're just going to put that right up there for you. So from your highest self, we're going to start with tarot, and then we'll get into the oracle cards. We have the Page of Swords, the Knight of Crystals, the Four of Diamonds, and the Knight of Diamonds. So wow, we have a lot going on in terms of knights. And I feel like ultimately what your higher self is trying to communicate to you is it's time to take action. Knights are always beyond ideas. It's you have the ideas that you need, and you need to start taking action on anything that you are wanting to do. Because even if we look at this from a progression, like reading it left to right, we have the Page of Swords starting out. The Page of Swords is the ideas person. They are the person that they are here for the ideas, whatever ideas you've been wanting to act on. I feel like that might be the stage you're at now. But what your higher self is saying is that you can think about this all day and all night, but until you actually take some action with the Knight of Crystals, which crystals, this is basically like the wands suit in this deck. So go at it like ferociously without stopping. And I do feel that it's going to lead you to some riches. Your higher self is saying like, this is going to be a fruitful thing for you with the Four of Diamonds, but also like, remember, because the Four of Diamonds, don't get me wrong, it's a good thing. It's you like taking care of your space, your home space in particular. But it also can talk about greed and being greedy because we think that we are going to have to go without. And Spirit is ultimately saying that you don't have to go without. You are actually very safe to pursue this passion. And so whatever you've been feeling has been coming up for you passionate wise, you're going to be safe to do it. Now, with the Knight of Diamonds, this to me says that if there is a fear of money or like being able to have stability with what you're wanting to go after, because I feel like that's your biggest concern. What Spirit and your higher self are trying to tell you is that the fear is valid and you're allowed to have those fears, but you need to do things in spite of the fear anyways, because the Knight of Diamonds, this is pursuing a path that is filled with riches, that is filled with material gain. So you're on the right trajectory. You have a good idea and it's time to run with it, basically. And so your higher self is saying, get out of the ideas phase, get out of the thinking about it phase. If you're wanting to open a storefront, start looking at properties that you could rent and what that's going to cost you. Start thinking about the renovation process. Start planning the menu or what items you're going to sell. Start reading books about business. That's obviously only one example, but if you want to start creating music, ask yourself what kind of tools you need to make sure that you have access to. If you're wanting to look for a job in a certain field, find other people that are in that field. There are so many websites now that allow us to link up. They're LinkedIn, I think, actually is one that allow us to link up with people that are in our field that we want to be in. And it's the same with I feel like whatever this is, it is like a passionate pursuit. It doesn't have to be just like a money-making opportunity, but the money will come anyways, is basically what we're getting here. And it could also be a multitude of things. You might have 4 to 5 different ideas, and your higher self is saying you need to just start acting. Stop thinking, start acting, and move through it in spite of any fears that crop up, especially financial fears. And know that the path you're on is the correct one. No matter how many ideas you're moving forward with, like I said, you're on a really good trajectory right now. Sorry, I had to get a little sip of my drink. Y'all always ask me what I'm drinking because it's often tea, but today I'm actually drinking an Ollie and Pop. This is not sponsored. I just really like their drinks. This is a sparkling tonic and the cherry vanilla flavor is my favorite. So then we have for you the card, The Thread. We have for you the sword. Ooh. Okay. I know what this is about. And the orphan. Okay. I'm just going to have to put it plainly. There is somebody or possibly multiple people that you need to cut ties with. And I say that because the thread, literally in this instance, next to the sword and the orphan, this is a tie that you have with someone else. And it's time to cut that thread. Or you could also cleanse it. Cutting is a very final act. It is, we are not talking anymore. We are having nothing to do with each other anymore. You can also do cord cleansing, which is a little bit less invasive, but it's time to cut the energetic cords with people that tell you your ideas suck or don't believe in what you're trying to do. I feel like ultimately there is a fear, and the reason that you keep these people around you is because you have a fear of abandonment. And that's valid. That's so valid. That is so valid. Many of us don't even realize where our fear of abandonment comes from. And oftentimes it comes from very early on. It can be as simple as parents letting us cry it out to go to sleep. That can cause us in adulthood to have fears of abandonment, that nobody is coming, right? When we need them the most. And there are so many instances where that will be stored in our body, in the trauma body. And we talked about this a little bit in pile number 1 as well, things being stored in the body. Which is really interesting because I've been going through something very similar myself right now. And maybe that's why you're also attracted to my readings, is because there's something similar for you. But when it comes to this thread, that's literally all I'm seeing. Is there are definitely people around you that don't support everything that you are trying to do. Now, it doesn't mean that we can't validate ourselves, we can't push through, but I ultimately think that whoever these people are, it might just be one person that you need to just put some space between, but your higher self is ultimately saying with the sword, and look at how this sword is also laying over this crack. Literally, it's like a severed cord. There is somebody that is pulling you down. And you're afraid that if you let them go, that you will be alone, or there is inherently something wrong with you or unlovable about you, or there's definitely some kind of fear that's coming up around abandonment. And that is the fear that your higher self is asking you to pay attention to. Show yourself evidence of why it's not true, of why. Think about other people in your life that haven't abandoned you. Think about, obviously not everybody has a mom and a dad who didn't do that. Not everybody has siblings that didn't do that. Not everybody has friends that didn't do that. But there's got to be someone that didn't do that to you, that has never shown to you that that is what the outcome will be. Give yourself that evidence. Think about when you went through some of the hardest times in your life, who were the people that were there for you? And maybe it was this person initially, but they just don't serve your highest purpose anymore, and you don't serve theirs. And it's time for you to be more in service of self and to put the things that you want to do into action and cut this cord. So we also have for you the cards of Shadow. And we have the card Reflect. So your higher self is also really asking you to, so the shadow work to me is this orphan card. This is what we're being asked to look at and to, I don't want to say deal with, because I feel like that's a very negative way of putting it. But because the shadow is not to be dealt with, it's to be worked with. And your shadow work inherently lies in, and it's just the shadow work right now that's surfacing. There's shadow work to me is an ongoing process. You're never going to be just done doing shadow work. It doesn't work like that because we also can accumulate it over time as well. But with shadow work, you're being asked right now by your higher self specifically to ask yourself where in your life people taught you that you had to be by yourself, that you would be orphaned or abandoned, or that you would have no one there to help support you, and that you would be fully alone, and that was such a harsh reality that you would have to face. It's going to be different for everybody. For some people, it is those early childhood years. For some of us, it was friends that we've lost. It was lovers that we've lost. It's, there are so many places where we can see and feel through abandonment and not know what to do with it. The reason I always pinpoint the childhood is because, number one, that's my favorite area of study, is depth psychology and child psychology. And with child psychology, we don't think that those things will carry with us, or maybe some of you do, but I promise you they do. Even if, like, parents will say silly things like, oh, they won't remember, like, we can curse in front of them, we can do this, they won't remember us fighting in front of them. I promise you, your body remembers that shit. Even if you don't inherently have the conscious memory of it, your body will hold that. And so even in early childhood, if we have this, feeling, what it really comes down to is, even if our parents or people closest to us didn't mean to abandon us, it doesn't make them inherently bad people. However, we at that time did not have the mind to conceptualize what was happening and to self-soothe. We rely on our parental figures, on our guides in this life, not spiritual, but our like physical human guides, which would be parents or like other mentors, caregivers. We rely on them to show us that we are not alone and that we will be taken care of. That's like their only job, is to take care of us, at least as a parental figure or a guide for you. And if for whatever reason, mom or dad or whoever had a bad day, that can translate over a long period of time if we're not present to do the work and ask ourselves why we feel such a strong sense of abandonment. And for some of you, like I said, it's not going to be the early childhood stuff. It's going to be even now we can experience abandonment and not know what to do with it. It's usually that we don't have the tools to self-soothe ourselves through it. And I would argue that even until we are around the age of 26, we don't even have a fully developed brain. That is like scientific fact. We are missing components of our brain that help us to critically think. And this is why I also argue that we aren't really full-fledged adults until we're 26. I know a lot of people have a lot of colorful feelings about that and opinions, but we're missing key elements that help us to make the right decisions in our best interests. And so you can experience trauma at any point in time in your life that can show this abandonment to you. I'm just trying to maybe open your mind to a little bit more of how this can come about. I think that when we say the word trauma, it's, oh no, like I had a roof over my head, I had food on the table, like I didn't experience trauma. But all trauma really is we were in a place at a time, something traumatic happened, and we didn't have the tools to bring ourselves back from that traumatic experience, or we didn't have the tools to understand what was happening. And that can happen at any point in our lives, right? A lot of it, like I said, is more childhood based, but it's not always. And there's also big T trauma and little t trauma, where big T is those big catastrophic events that most of modern society considers trauma. Little t trauma is those little moments, crying it out as an infant because that's what your parents thought they should do. That can innately instill trauma in the body right there, something that seems so normally practiced, right? So I'm saying all of these things because I really got this feeling that there were people, some of y'all listening, that maybe don't know those things. And this is something that your higher self is wanting you to know, that it's time for you to work through this, to work through the earlier stuff or even more recent stuff, to cut and sever the cords with people that maybe not help, it's more of a hindrance, but cause you to kind of reenact this abandonment trauma, to reenact, even if we're doing it in an unconscious way. It's not always purposefully done, but your higher self is saying there are definitely people in your life that need to be removed. And also, the thread can talk about the very fabric of your life. Every thread is so carefully woven by you and co-created with the universe. And this is also a call to action from your higher self, once again, to take action in your best interests. Now, we also have reflect, and I feel like this kind of goes hand in hand with the shadow work, because I feel like wherever this shadow work is sprouting up for you, it's not, I'm getting the sense from your higher self that it is not new. This is something that is maybe from the past that we need to reflect on. I'm also hearing specifically from spirit that some of you also need to get like the evil eye, like the talisman of the evil eye. If any of you have ever seen it, there's an emoji of it. The evil eye will help keep you protected. And I don't know why. I don't know if that's for everybody, but like you can get it in a bracelet. You can get it in like a window hanging crystal. There are so many ways. You can just look up on Etsy like evil eye talisman or jewelry and you'll be able to find it. But spirit is definitely saying that's like a message from spirit directly, not necessarily your higher self, that you need some kind of psychic protection. Now, we also have for you all paths lead home, inner authority, intuition, and turn your gaze within. So this to me is really just confirming that reflection card up here. But this is why I also feel like your higher self is saying there is something earlier on that is causing a repeat of this original, like the shadow work is coming up because it wants to be dealt with. And no, I'm sorry. I said it again, not dealt with, worked through. And with all paths lead home, I feel like this often talks about our earliest remembrance of home. So whatever that looked like to you. And knowing that, yes, home can be a place, but also home is within you. And the reason that these things are coming up for you is because you are meant to journey down the path of coming back to yourself. To me, personally, that's all tarot cards really are. Yes, we can look at the future and the energies and things like that, but ultimately, the best way to use tarot as a tool is to bring yourself back to your own self-awareness every single time. And I think ultimately that's why my channel is a little bit different than a lot of other people's that you've maybe seen, is that's really what my like main focus is bringing the awareness back to you. And so I feel like this card, that's really what it's also asking of you. Your highest self is saying, how can we make our body, our vessel, our self, our mind, how can we come back to our own home within ourselves, not necessarily go to a physical place? And then we also have the card of the mouse for you. And this card says to kind of move in a way that, like, mice can be very sneaky. Mice can be, they fit into the smallest cracks. They're sneaky. And it's not that it's inherently bad or anything like that. It's two things, actually. I'm getting two messages. One thing is, move with this in silence. If you're not ready to talk about this with somebody else, or maybe somebody who even played a role in your trauma or in whatever you are uncovering from the past. I keep saying the word trauma because that's what I keep hearing and I'm clairaudient. But for some of you, it might not be quite on that level. It might just be things that need to be addressed, period. And with mouse, I am hearing like you don't necessarily need to go to the person that you need to cut ties with. You can just do these things on your own without bringing them in with it, if that makes sense. And also, mouse talks about not only moving in silence, but doing things like, I feel like in a way, like mice tend to like move around at night, especially if they're like in your house. Mice tend to move around at night. And to me, the nighttime, the moon, the sleeping hours, that to me really does talk more about our unconscious mind. And so I feel like this is also a really big opportunity for you to start to look into that shadow aspect, looking into the depths of yourself. And again, I feel like if you were possibly drawn to pile number 1, you may also want to check it out because I feel like some of the themes are a little bit similar. There was something else I was going to say about mouse. There's another message here. It's sometimes when channeling, and I've told you all about this before, channelers, you have to be willing to be very open and not put your own like spin on every single message that comes through. And like the more open you can be, the easier the channeling is, if that makes sense. And I keep getting like a partial message, but it's not coming all the way through. Let me take another drink of my drink. Hold on. there's something about tight spaces. Something about tight spaces and how mice can fit into those tiny, small spaces. It's like where you, that's what it is. It's like where you least think you're going to find something is where it's going to crop up. It's like if you go, let's say you decide to like go to therapy or something and you think you're going to talk about one specific topic and you end up talking about something else for like the next 4 sessions. This happened to me in my own life. This is my human self now coming through. You know, I went into therapy the first time thinking I was going to talk about my sister who had passed away from a drug overdose. And I actually ended up talking for 4 sessions about my mom and how emotionally abusive she was. And that was a surprise to me. I never would have, like, that was not what I thought I was going to therapy for. And that was ultimately what came out. So I feel like this might come in a way that it's not what you think it is. Like, it's not, this is why you're being kind of pulled into the depth of it, because there's more to the story that even meets the eye. And then I have 3 cards from your higher self here at the end that are just like some extra little gifts and tokens, I guess you could say. And we have for you the card Courage. When picking roses, don't fear the thorns. We have Be Present. Don't use the hours, use the hours, don't count them. And we have Release, lighten your load. So ultimately, this is going to make you even lighter. This is going to make you feel good. It might be a little bit difficult at first, but none of the cards, even in the main tarot section, lead me to believe that you're going to have a bad time. I actually think that a lot of this releasing and opening is going to feel good. So I don't want you to come away from this reading feeling afraid either, because ultimately you are on the right path already. And honestly, I wish you nothing but the best on this journey. Don't be afraid to have courage, to be present with how you're feeling, and to, release the things that are not serving. And please, my beautiful pumpkins, do not forget, when you stand up in your own authenticity, you empower everyone around you to do the same. And don't forget to follow me on Instagram, on TikTok. I'm at Kloee Taylor. New content all month long. I have been working with an assistant. We actually have stuff coming out. The podcast should be back up and running within the next day or so. If you haven't checked it out, links down below. It's available everywhere you listen to podcasts. It's finally back. It's making its big debut this month again. And I also have for you my Cashapp, Venmo, and PayPal. If you would like to tip me for my readings, it is never expected, but always appreciated. And of course, my Patreon, if you want early access to readings that you can't get anywhere else, bonus content, horoscopes, all kinds of good stuff. Definitely make sure you check it out. And I love you so much, pumpkin, and I'll talk to you again soon. Bye. Hello there, my beautiful pile number 3. Welcome into your reading. So I have lit a little incense on the side. I'm actually coming back to this reading a couple of days later. So it's funny, the last couple of readings I've done for you, those of you that have chosen pile number 3s, I have taken a big break in between coming back to the 3rd pile. And I feel like that's always kind of a good thing, because you get my energy at its freshest point. And don't get me wrong, of course I cleanse and ground and do things between readings, but I feel like it hits different. It's like the energy just always hits a little different when we take a whole day in between. But today we're obviously going to be looking at that message from your higher self. If you chose the rose quartz, this is going to be your pile. So we have for you the Ace of Swords, the 2 of Swords, the King of Swords, and the 7 of Cups. We have a lot of sword energy going on here. And I'm not going to lie to you, I do feel like when we see an abundance of sword energy in a reading, especially coming from your higher self, you are thinking a lot and you're thinking very quickly. And you might even find that you have a lot of racing thoughts, or things are just moving really fast. I do feel like you have a good handle on things though, or you will, because the King of Swords to me is somebody that is able to make decisions from a knowledgeable place. And I do feel that maybe we have had some, with the Ace of Swords and the 2 of Swords, I feel like there is some hard decisions that you're bumping up against. And maybe that's why you're here, is you're hoping for confirmation on a decision that you're making. I feel like your higher self wants you to know that no matter what decision you decide to make, it's going to be the right one, because The King of Swords, like that's you acting in your own best interest. But with the Two of Swords here, it's like you have two things that you have to decide between and you're having a hard time of it. But at the same time, I'm also seeing with the Ace of Swords that you have had something come in, like something, because aces are always gifts from the universe, always. Like that's, you're given energy or something physical, or you're given something from the universe. Usually it's an idea with the Ace of Swords, and it's like what you decide to do with that idea. And I feel like your higher self has been kind of pushing you to make a decision. And you need to know that you make good decisions. You are capable of making good decisions for yourself. You don't need the opinions of everybody else. You can make this decision for yourself. And your higher self also wants you to know with the Seven of Cups that that's also just life. Like making decisions, if you are so paralyzed by the idea of making a choice for yourself right now, life kind of unfolds that way regardless. We receive lessons, we learn, we grow, we change. Think about one of the hardest lessons in your life that you've ever had to learn and how much it shifted your perspective into something better. Now, obviously there are things that we go through or people go through that like nobody asked for that, you know, nobody wants to ever see themselves go through that. And it was just a hard time. But I do feel like whatever this decision is, you need to trust the path, because the Seven of Cups is literally a myriad of paths. It can be very fruitful. It can be very devious. It can lead to riches. It can lead to stagnation. Literally every cup here represents a different path that you can take. And so it might even be more than two choices. Every path leads to something a little bit different. But I want you to know, and your higher self wants you to know, that no matter where the path leads, you're not going to veer so far off from yourself that you're never going to be able to come back to center, because it's like a pendulum. And what do we know about pendulums? They always have to come back to center. It can swing really hard to the left, but then it's going to swing really hard to the right. And eventually it's going to have to go back to the center. And I feel like for you, there's so much fear about the path in front of you, making a wrong choice or doing something incorrect, that you're paralyzed in even making a decision. And eventually a decision is going to have to be made, whether it is made by you or someone else for you, the universe or a person or whatever. You know how to make capable decisions. You are smart. You are intelligent. This is coming directly from your highest self. You are smart. You are intelligent. You are capable. You are in control of this situation ultimately. And it is like, it doesn't matter if whatever you decide, one person's feelings are going to be hurt, or, you know, obviously we try not to hurt other people intentionally, but sometimes there is like unhealthy bonds between people where, like, if I could give you an example on this, do I want to talk about that? Do I want to air that to the public? Well, okay. In my family, I won't say specifics. I won't say like specific names. In my own like family line, there is this really weird codependency that I see. And one person like kind of likes to party a little bit more, drink a little bit more, smoke more, things like that, which they are a grown adult and they are allowed to do and make that decision for themselves. But there's another person in that family that gets really upset about this and thinks that this person's being a bad example and and you're hurting me and you're hurting our relationship. Now, don't get me wrong. I do think that like certain things, like when it's overboard, it can hurt relationships. It can cause destruction. I'm not saying that that's not real. However, it's almost like the person that kind of likes to party a little bit more, they internally feel really guilty for making decisions that they want to make for their own life. And it's like, are those things really hurting the other person, or did they just have an idea of what they think the other person should be doing? Like, let's call them Susie and Bob. Okay. Bob likes to party. Susie hates it. Right. And so is Bob actually doing a bad thing if they're not constantly going overboard and they are just living their life to the fullest? Or is Susie's idea of reality what it really should be? And personally, I am from my perspective, obviously everybody's going to have a different one. From my perspective on that, I feel like everybody should act in a way that is supportive of themselves and in alignment with themselves, be it, and sometimes that brings upset. Sometimes that brings separation. Sometimes that brings like a need to distance in a relationship, and that's okay. I am like I believe in like fierce independence and like freedom. Y'all know that. That's like my core belief for myself is like freedom. I will do anything to be as free as possible, be it from a relationship, a friendship, environment. That's just something that holds really strong to me. So obviously you're getting like my human self, my opinion in here. I'm just trying to give you an example. But with that, like, let's say that Bob is trying to decide between having a couple of drinks and upsetting Susie, right? It's like, making that decision, they know how to make capable decisions for themselves. They actually shouldn't put Susie's interests above their own. Not really, because that actually leads to unhealthy coping mechanisms, and it's like a whole thing, right? So, or not coping mechanisms, it leads to like unhealthy codependency, and there's a lot there. There's a lot to unpack. I'm sorry that I'm skimming the top here, but in doing that, Bob making these decisions for himself when not going overboard and hurting themselves really doesn't impact Susie at all. Even though my point to this is oftentimes we will sit in this mental prison thinking that we have to appease everybody else and make everybody else happy, make the Susies of the world happy, when in reality, Susie's idea of reality is kind of this really old school way of living that doesn't really fit with the modern way that we do things. It's kind of going out the door, if I'm honest, and it's just not conducive to somebody living a full experience of the human life, right? And so Bob has to decide, am I going to continue to appease Susie, or am I going to keep making decisions for my own best interest? And what is that path going to look like? My whole point to this is just to show you, or to say to you, that even if we think that we are hurting others, other people also shouldn't put their happiness on us, if that makes sense. That's like the message that I'm getting from your higher self is like, you might think that you're causing destruction in your family by making decisions, or with a friendship, or in your relationships, but ultimately they shouldn't put their happiness in your hands. That's not your job. And the more that we do that, the more codependent it becomes, the more unhealthy it becomes. And obviously there's a lot in that. I can't hit every single person because everybody has a different scenario going on. But I feel like if this is in relationships and it's not actually causing life-threatening danger for you to make decisions for yourself, you have to start acting in your own best interest, even if it hurts people's feelings. Okay, so we also have for you the medallion. We have the gem, and we have the siren. Ooh, juicy. Okay. So your higher self is saying, ultimately, you need to chase that happy. Whatever, like, okay, so the gem and the medallion, I want to point this out. Both of these are like you chasing something that glitters, something that is golden, something that you prize above other things. This can be money. This can be a job. This can be a certain kind of family you want to create. This is literally anything you want to chase in your life. Maybe it's literally like becoming an Olympic champion and you're chasing a gold medallion. You're going for the gold, and that means you have to sacrifice certain things to get there. But your higher self is saying, like, you need to act in your best interest. I just keep getting that same message of you need to start asking yourself honestly, ask yourself the question, what would a person that had unconditional love for themselves do? And live your life in accordance with that question. I actually heard that one today. And I really liked it. I heard that somewhere today in a couple of places, actually, which is funny that it would come up in this reading as well. But like having your best interest be more important, we think that it's going to be selfish and people are going to see us as bad for doing that. But ultimately, when we are actually acting in accordance with ourselves and we are vibrating at our highest, that energy expands and it touches other people. So us acting in full alignment with ourselves actually is the most selfless thing we can do, because it also empowers other people. It shows other people they can go after what they want to. And it's not like you can't control how other people are going to feel about you anyway. You could do everything right and everything perfect, and there's still going to be people that are not going to agree with what you say, think, or do. So if you know that already, why not just start living your life for yourself? Why not just start making decisions for yourself? Why, like, you get one life if you are lucky, 100 years at least, right? I mean, I always make the joke that I'm going to be here for like 250 years because I don't know how it's going to happen. But that's like, I always say that. No, I'm living until I'm like 250. But, and no, I don't have like some secret information on that. That's literally just a joke. But I feel like with tarot card readers, some people like think that we are like in the deep state, and we're not. So I just needed to throw that out there. I've had a lot of really interesting comments come my way being a tarot card reader. And no, that's like not some secret knowledge that I have. It's just a joke that me and my husband have. But in chasing your dreams and pursuing your own path, it has been calling to you already. Your higher self has already been calling out to you. It's already, and you know, I feel like this reading has literally just confirmed it to you. You already know because it's already been calling you. And your higher self is saying, like, it might be hard to get here, because if you notice, the gem is kind of surrounded by all this yucky stuff. And then the medallion, you also have to travel through the dark to get it. And that is like the most precious thing you could obtain in this lifetime. And so your higher self is saying, like, yeah, it might be hard. It might feel kind of lonely at first. It might be a huge transition. I mean, this even comes up to like setting boundaries with people, right? The swords are also master boundary setters. And sometimes boundaries can feel very lonely when people don't understand. But the thing with boundaries is people will test them. People will see how far they can get, but you have to keep reinstating the boundary even when it's hard. And even if it gets a little lonely, I promise you, there are people on this planet that want to see you succeed, that want to love you unconditionally, that want nothing more than your happiness. And I know this because I am this way with my friends. Even if my friends have interests that go against mine, their happiness is ultimately the thing that I want the most. And it's really important that we allow ourselves the grace that we give to other people. And like I said, I feel like your higher self has already been sending you the signals. It calls to you like a siren in the night, which a siren is, they were like, I don't know all of the lore on sirens, so I apologize if I get some of this incorrect. I'm not like a mermaid expert, but to my understanding, a siren was mermaidic-like. I don't think they were actually mermaids, but mermaidic-like, and they would sing a song that would lure sailors into their death. Which, granted, your higher self doesn't want to lure you into death. It might feel that way, but ultimately, as you're expanding and growing and shifting your perspective to be more in alignment with yourself, it won't be so lonely. It won't feel like death. You will reach these center points. Okay, so we also have for you the card of surrender. And we have for you the card of ascension. Ah, I love it. We love to see it, okay? So with surrender and ascension, number one, I love and hate that card, surrender. Personally, I love and hate it. I love it because once we can surrender, everything feels so much easier. But getting to that point of actually surrendering is the hardest thing we will ever do. And it's giving up control. It's saying, okay, I'm going to make this one decision and I hope it's the right one, but I'm just going to surrender to the process. And ascension, I love this card because this card is all about ascending to your own next level, to whatever calls out to you the most. And sometimes it can be like the literal ascension, right, into like the 5D, but it's also just an ascension in your own life for your own expansion of self. And I feel like you are on the precipice of a really major one where you live your life a certain way right now, especially when it comes to your relationships and the decisions that you make. And even in like a year from now or less, I feel like you're going to be like, wow, I really used to be the person that tried to make everybody happy. And look what happened when I started to make myself happy, you know? So I feel like right now, I hesitate to say the word like growing pains because I feel like that sounds very demeaning. And I don't mean it like, oh, you're a child and you need to grow. Like I'm not trying to, I don't believe in ageism. So like I'm not trying to say it that way, but like even in your like 80s, you still can experience growing pains, you know? I feel like right now that's really where you are. You're in the middle of the growing pains. From this point things will be different, but you have to start trusting yourself. We also have for you the card Earth School. I like this card. It says life lessons, soul growth. Oh my gosh. I do not look at these cards before I read them. Life lessons, soul growth, study, and higher learning. I literally just said like, this is like, I've been talking about like lessons and growth this whole time. That's hilarious. So, this deck I really love. This one comes from the Starseed Oracle by Rebecca Campbell. And great deck. All the decks I use, by the way, I link them down below for you if you want to get your hands on them. But Earth School, basically, in all of her books, she talks a lot about like ascension and aliens and being like how you can really start to shape your life in a way that activates you and your purpose. And her work is really good. I recommend like all of her books all the time. Rebecca Campbell is a fantastic thought leader and her tarot card decks are great too. But she talks a lot about like us creating soul contracts to come to this earth to help raise the vibration of the collective. And even though we're doing that, right? We're doing that through every action that we take and every time we make a decision in our best interest and raise our own vibration, we're helping. But we also have to look at Earth like a school. Like our soul came here to experience life the way that we have because we were meant to learn and grow through this time frame, through this time period. And so I feel like right now, that might even be some of the stuff that you're learning about right now is like, I will always recommend if this card specifically is resonating with you, check out Rebecca Campbell's books. She wrote Light is the New Black, which I loved, Letters to a Starseed, Rise, Sister, Rise. And I also recommend if you're like really into like Pleiadian star seeds, things like that, definitely check out Dolores Cannon. She has a series called The Convoluted Universe, I believe. And I've read 2 of the books from that series and they are interesting. So definitely like if that's something you're interested in, I will link those books down below for you, all the ones I just mentioned. So definitely check them out. I'm a big reader, so I love sharing knowledge in that way. But that's where we're at right now. You're in Earth School and there is lessons to be learned from this situation. And we also have for you the card of the Whale. Ooh, I kind of want to pull the book on this one if I have it next to me. I'm looking for it. Did I not bring it out here? Y'all always get the real tea whenever I feel like Patreon gets more of this chaotic energy where I'm like looking for stuff and I totally don't edit it out of the video. You know what? Because I cannot find the book sitting right here with me, I feel like that is also a sign that we should not look at the book and we should just talk about the medicine of the whale. So whales, they're so freaking fascinating. Whales are so fascinating. And I want to say that it's like whales and dolphins that actually do correspond to Pleiadian starseeds. Like, the oceanic life is really important. So I do feel like if you've ever felt called to that, definitely look more into it. I am not an expert on starseeds, so I'm still studying myself. Eventually I will make content on it because I'm interested, but it's something that's going to take some time. But whales, they are honestly some of the like smartest to me ocean creatures. They also live to be like exceptionally old if they're not in captivity. And they also, like, have you ever seen how whales communicate through, like, the way that they, like, sing their song, basically? And it is, like, the fabric that connects all of them together, right? And so I feel like the whale's medicine that is coming to you is, like, especially if anything feels lonely, you are going to find your other whales. You are going to find the other people. Like literally, y'all, I have been, and don't get me wrong. This is my human talking for a moment. I always like to say that when I'm like not channeling. Literally, I have been asking, and my friends are fantastic, and some of them are so amazing and so incredible. And like, I only keep like a tight knit circle of friends that I really love and appreciate. I don't keep a large circle of friends. It's just not who I am. Nothing wrong with that if you do. I just choose not to. But I have been asking and asking and asking and asking and asking since probably like 2017 for a friend that was in the same spiritual boat as me. Like somebody that does similar things, that has not done a similar path necessarily, but like I've been asking and asking for someone that like has done basically as much work as I have. And that's not I'm above or below other people. It's that when you get so far in your like spiritual and manifestation journey and things like that, it's like the more you start to believe it, the more you live in alignment with that. And it is different when you meet people that don't necessarily live their life that way. And it's not bad or wrong, and I'm not saying that. What I am saying is like, I've been asking since 2017, 18, 19, 20, 4 years. And I feel like I have just now met someone that I was like, oh my gosh, like all the hairs on my body stood up and I couldn't believe it. I was like, oh my gosh, like you are the person I've been asking for. And again, that's not to shade anyone, put anyone down, but I've just been asking for a specific person, and not specific like I knew who they were or their name, but a specific type of person. And I really want to drive that point home. If any of my friends are listening, this is not shade or tea. Like every friend serves a different purpose in people's lives. And I believe that. And they all have something important to bring to the table. But this person in particular, I have been asking for someone like them for a long, long time. And yeah. So just so y'all are aware, sometimes it takes time for those people to show up. 4 years for me. And I've met a ton of amazing people along the journey. All of my friends are freaking fabulous, but it takes time sometimes to meet those people. And so if you're going in on this journey and it feels a little bit lonely, that's okay. You will find other people that sing that same song, that want to be interested in the same things that you're interested in, that believe things in a similar fashion, and that like can help you grow. And I feel like for me in that instance, like I often am the teacher in my relationships. Not every relationship I have, but in many of my relationships, I'm often the teacher. And like this new person in my life, I feel like we have so much to teach each other. And I love that. So it's nice. So know that those people will show up though. Like that to me is more about finding like your soul circle, right? Or that's what I like to say, your soul circle, the circle of friends or family members or community that you're looking for. And then we also have for you, I just have 3 more cards from your higher self. We have joy, make time for the little things today. So today, think of something that really enacts joy or inspires joy in your life today and go for it. We have patience, wait for the fruit to ripen. Okay. See, this journey that you're on right now, your higher self wants you to know that it is going to take time. That's why I noticed like all of the gems here were surrounded by kind of like darkness and stuff. So it's going to take some time. And then we have change. As with the falling leaves, embrace change. So change is also coming. And I think it's going to be a good thing though. Truly. I think you're going to be really like, I think it's going to feel like a relief, the change that's coming. And I love you so much, my pumpkin. Thank you for tuning in today. Please do not forget, when you stand up in your own authenticity, you empower everyone around you to do the same. And do not forget to follow me on Instagram, on TikTok. I'm at Kloee Taylor. New content this month. And also the podcast is back in full swing. Every single Tuesday, we have new episodes out. I have so many exciting topics this month. So make sure that you check it out. It's available everywhere you listen to podcasts. Links are down below. And if you would like to and you feel called to, I do accept tips for my readings. Cashapp, Venmo, PayPal is listed down below. Again, I don't expect that from you, but it is always appreciated. And last but certainly not least, I also have my Patreon. If you want early access to all of my readings, specific readings that don't come here, like you can't get them here, they're only for Patreon, weekly energy updates, horoscopes for the month, early access to those, bonus content, stuff like that. So definitely make sure that you are checking out the Patreon if you're interested. It's a great way to support my channel. And I love you so much, Pumpkin, and I will talk to you again soon. Bye.